screen so that you have your options. So, all right. So I am so excited to be here. Thanks, Haley. I was like, self-advocacy, yes. In my personal life, as well as in my professional life as a counselor, of course, as a licensed clinical social worker, advocacy is like the daily conversation with clients and therapy, because really, I feel like most of life comes down to self-advocacy on the personal relational level with your own self internally, as well as on the level of with other people. And pretty much every aspect of life, if we're communicating, we're really practicing self-advocacy. I think sometimes we create this idea of what self-advocacy is as like this big scary thing we have to do out there. And I think it's nice to remember that, like, continuously at every moment, we're really self-advocating. The clothes we choose to put on is a form of self-advocacy and how we present ourselves. My choice to take my shoes off and be in my socks here for everyone on Zoom, I'm in socks, is a choice about self-advocacy, because first and primary, I'm taking care of myself. Because for some reason, I thought those shoes would be comfy today, and they're just not working. So I'm not going to wear them right now. And that's self-advocacy as well. So it's like how we take care of ourselves in a moment, how we enjoy ourselves in life, how we connect with other people, and how, of course, we communicate about needs and wants and wishes and desires, and express how we like things to change and to grow. So on multiple levels, we're always doing self-advocacy. So I hope that makes it like a little bit more like, oh, it's not quite this huge thing. It can actually be kind of the small and interpersonal continual part of life as well. So I'm going to grab the clicker. Is it working over here? Mouse. Okay. All right. We're using the mouse. All right. All right. I like to start every type of presentation or event off by, is this a good spot to stand? Okay. All right. By asking everyone just to pause first and kind of become present in the moment. We always have a lot of stuff going on in the outside world and day. So I always like to invite everyone just to a 1-minute meditation to kind of start things. So just like, you don't have to close your eyes and cross your legs or do anything like that. But just if you can pause for a moment, take a breath. Any distractions or thoughts, things you had before you came in here today, things you have after you've been here today, if you can just let them go for now in this moment, and just be present with this presentation today. An invitation to be open to your own thoughts, your own experience, the feelings you might notice within your own body today. I invite your curiosity about it, about the process, about your feelings. And I invite you to notice what's there with open curiosity, embracing it to see where it can lead us. And I invite you to bring that curiosity forward in questions today. It's okay to raise your hand and ask a question, share a thought. I'm very open in that way. Thank you. And just coming back to the present whenever you're ready. All right. So I had so many fun thoughts. For me, it's too many thoughts, and it's learning to like limit them. So one of the things I wanted to kind of start with today was talking about your idea of self-advocacy, so that you have the opportunity to choose your own definition. I like to move away from textbook definitions, the dictionary's definition, what somebody told you self-advocacy is and what it's supposed to look like, and maybe media ideas and things. And instead, I just want you to think for a moment. If you were writing your definition of self-advocacy, what would it be? You are creating in your own life your own idea of advocacy for yourself? Is it the word self-advocacy put together in that phrase? Is that complete for you? Is it a phrase or a different word that fits better? Is there a paragraph of thoughts? That's me. Multi-paragraph definitions. And I just want to invite you to maybe start by writing down a few words, a few thoughts, a phrase of your definition of self-advocacy. Come on and join us. I relate. I had to park several blocks away and then walk in. I feel you. So we're just writing our definition of self-advocacy, not a dictionary, not a textbook, just what words, thoughts, phrases, paragraph. Maybe it's even like a multi-part, like self-advocacy is this in my own life, personally for me. Self-advocacy is this professionally. Self-advocacy is this at the doctor's office. But what would your definition be? How would you define self-advocacy? Because that's going to guide us today, your personal journey. It's always fun to me because I don't think anyone's definitions have ever matched ever. Because it's self-advocacy, it's personal. Whenever you kind of have that, now I want to ask you, what's your mental picture of what self-advocacy looks like? What is that? If you're a doodler, you want to draw it, go for it. If you want to like conjure that in your head of like, when you think now about your definition of self-advocacy, what's the mental picture for it? What's it look like? Is there like an action that's happening when you picture self-advocacy? What's that action? Is it a place that maybe you're picturing because you might need to be doing some self-advocacy in that space? What's the mental picture? Does anybody want to share their definition and their mental picture? It's okay if you don't. It's all right. You want to go, Sheila?
Yeah, I'll share. So when you were first talking about,
I'm gonna come over.
We got another
Oh,
one.
you got
Yeah,
another one?
that one's for you, this one.
Fantastic.
We'll just kind of pass
I
it
love
like around so that people in Zoom room can hear audience as well. I know that's a hassle, but.
I actually thought that when you were talking about choosing your own definition, I thought that was the definition. I'm like, that's a great definition of self-advocacy. So I just wrote that down. I'm like, I choose my own definition, so whether that's professionally, family-wise, or whatever, I choose my role. I choose how I want to be perceived or whatever.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's as far as I got. The first sentence you said.
I love it.
Anybody over here?
Anybody else?
Thanks, Sue.
I just wrote down, it took me a minute to figure it out, but I wrote down self-advocacy, expressing self-need to create the atmosphere for ideal, flourishing, growing, and being. So really, self-advocacy is many things, but really just creating an environment where, you know, I can express what my needs are, whether it be personal, professional, or maybe with family, that kind of thing. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Yes, I loved the word flourishing in there.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's one of the things I think is so vital about self-advocacy is we can't create environments where we can flourish if there's not self-advocacy. When I think about self-advocacy, I think my mental picture is my kid being like, I'm hungry. Plate coming in for more food, right? Asking for all the chocolate in the cabinets, right? Kids are such great self-advocates in the classroom, at home, wherever they are, as we create a safe environment for them to like really communicate with us and share those ideas. They're fantastic. So kind of my mental image is kids flourishing and kids like asking for their needs to be met and communicating what they want and their desires, from my years in education. So long in the past. So thank you all for that. So I wanted to also invite you to think about your personal experiences with self-advocacy as well. Whatever that has been in professional settings, whether it's been your personal settings, doctor's offices, of course, is a place that I end up having lots of conversations with people on a regular basis about self-advocacy work. Those health environments where we really have to advocate for our health needs be met because somebody else doesn't really get what we're going through until we've taken the time to really help them get what it is like, what my experience is like, and convey that to them. So we all have lots of personal experiences. And I think that sometimes, whether they've gone good or bad, they sometimes impact our definitions of self-advocacy and our feelings about self-advocacy as well. And also, I think that some of our ideas of self-advocacy, our definitions get impacted as well by examples from real people. Especially, I think that like the situations where we've seen other people maybe really struggle with self-advocacy or not be heard, that then can impact us with feeling sometimes like that's going to be our experience as well. And it can be kind of frightening or scary or upsetting or concerning or cause us to kind of begin that shutdown early. And so sometimes that leaks into our self-definition and it can actually kind of become a block for us. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. And also there's examples in the media all the time of self-advocacy. They're very interesting. Some of them are very interesting versions of self-advocacy lately that have helped me going, are you sure that's how you want people to view you? Okay. But also I think of other excellent examples in social media too. I think that there are two main queens of self-advocacy that get talked about a whole lot lately. Beyonce, Taylor Swift, pick your one. They are actually really excellent at self-advocacy. And in my experience as a clinician, it's been lots of fun watching them grow and their ability to do self-advocacy over the years. But they're people that genuinely like trust themselves and know themselves now. They've grown into maturity. They really know how to communicate what their wants and needs are. And they do so in lots of variety of interesting ways. And then they make money off of it. I mean, like that's the dream. So your self-advocacy turns into your music, turns into your life, turns into your brand. And I think there are really cool examples of that. But we can also think of lots of other examples as well. So I think that is kind of a fun thing to think about and how that impacts us. So then, of course, when we define self-advocacy and we start thinking about these examples, it comes with the question of, but will you be able to do that thing, that self-advocacy? So one of my favorite examples of all time of self-advocacy has one of my favorite quotes of all time as well. And I don't know if very many of you here know who Malala, I practice saying her name, I hope I get it right, Yousafzai how her story of self-advocacy, if you are familiar with her and what she's been through. I'm seeing some head shake a little bit, yes and no. So Malala was in, I believe, if I remember the whole story correctly, it's been years since I've read her book, so I might make a few mistakes. But Malala was actually facing continuing education for herself while under Taliban taking over and ruling. And Malala, her story is a story of incredible courage, because Malala continued even when she was facing severe persecution, and including being shot in the face and in the head. And she survived that. Malala has just so much incredible courage, even to this day, speaking around the world about her experiences, standing up for children and women's rights to education around the globe. Her ability to do self-advocacy goes across, I think, every aspect of self-advocacy that we could possibly cover, from interpersonal to educational to dealing with all the health issues that she's had to face and recovery and everything, and learning to communicate again, and all the work that she's had to do. She is an incredible example of it. And of course, this is one of my favorite quotes of hers: "One child, one teacher, one book, one pen can change the world." And I remember reading this years ago and thinking, you know, I think that's self-advocacy. And like part of my goal with it is to be able to help change the world, leave it a better, more positive place. So whenever she chose to speak up, even with a gun being pointed at her, it was based on her values and her beliefs. And that's what held her strong. And for me, when we think about how to define self-advocacy for ourselves, when we think about the motivation to actually advocate for ourselves in difficult situations, I think that it's easier to find that motivation when it's based on our values and beliefs. When we feel strongly about something, when we need something strongly, Mom, I really need chocolate. Then we really can stand more firm on what we're going to go for and ask for. And it unlocks more creativity. We get really creative about how we're going to justify our need for chocolate to Mom, even though we already had a chocolate cupcake, but it was really small and it wasn't that big. And here comes the creativity, because we're very driven for that desire, for that want. And therefore, our drive as grown-ups often comes from our beliefs and our values. And so I think it's really important to really pause with our definitions then and ask about the beliefs and the values that back them up. What do you value? I hear a lot of teachers talk about the value of being a positive role model for the kids. If that's a value you have, then that can also be your support for practicing your own self-advocacy. Because as you advocate for yourself and your own needs live in front of children, you are role modeling for them how to do that more effectively and better. My kid reminds me of this constantly. Self-protection. Sometimes we need to really, sometimes we don't value our self-protection enough. And sometimes we really do need to value our self-protection. I know that's been a topic amongst educators and education circles a lot these last few years, as various types of attacks have happened on education and teachers in various types of ways. So sometimes it's okay, necessary, important, need to do it, to value your own self-protection and to remember that and to hold that as a value that motivates you when you're self-advocating. If you don't do a good job of really advocating for your own self-protection, you aren't necessarily going to be able to get back into that classroom or that place and work with those kids in that capacity and that space again. So self-advocacy is really important for us to master. Do you value clear communication? Self-advocacy is clear communication as well. Do you value self-growth, new experiences, learning? I mean, how many times in the education circles do we say lifelong learner, right? And we value that. Well, self-advocacy is an ongoing, never-ending, continual process of learning how to improve it and do better at that. So if that's a value, you can use that to lean into your self-advocacy and feel more comfortable and confident, speaking up for yourself, reminding yourself, like, this self-advocacy work I need to do is rooted and grounded in values that I have that are important to me and beliefs I hold dear. Needs being met. Advocating for both self, but sometimes advocating for self is also advocating for others. In fact, a lot of times it starts with one person really starting to advocate for themselves and talk about their needs being met. And that leads to a collective movement of people coming together for needs to be met as well. Those are just a few thoughts I had connected to education. But now I really want you to think about what your value is. What do you hold as important? What do you want to be able to say that you did? Like looking back on your self-advocacy journey. Is that a fire alarm?
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? A fire has been reported in the building.
Okay.
Fire has been reported in the building.
All right.
Let's just pause that Zoom and.
Tell us if it's real. Does this happen a lot?
No.
That's why we're like.
I'm gonna
May I have your
advocate,
attention,
Probably better take.
I'm gonna advocate that we're gonna go outside.
Fire has been reported.
Let's take it seriously.
We're gonna be
Fire
safe.
has been
We'll come
reported
back.
in the building.
So, welcome back. I'm gonna return to my notes so I can bring myself back. Successful self-advocacy really seems to come from deep conviction and connection to your personal beliefs and values. It's repeatedly what research shows. It's what I see constantly, daily in clinician practice with my clients. And it's what we see in a lot of examples as well out there. Successful self-advocacy comes from us making those choices. So based on our values and beliefs. So determining what yours are is really important. I always like examples. And that's why I really like to invite people to connect as well with someone who will actually benefit from your self-advocacy. Sometimes for some of us, we have to have a face or a name that really helps us be able to then know it's important to that person that we're taking care of ourselves. And so I want you to think of a person that would benefit from your improved self-advocacy. Maybe it's yourself, like bonus points for writing yourself as well. You obviously will benefit. But I always notice that, especially in counseling, especially with teachers, givers and care providers for people, oftentimes motivation comes from thinking about other people first and realizing the benefit to them. So if that's what we need to sometimes do, it's okay for us just to go with that and say, yeah, these other people will benefit from our improved self-advocacy. That's okay.
Well, I think maybe I was reading your mind when you asked us to think about a definition at the beginning, because I was kind of making connections with what you just said. And I wrote, speaking up for yourself, your needs and your values. And I think like having that foundation, that groundedness of being like the reason why you are asking for this or saying this or doing this really helps to keep your focus on what you need and move forward in a positive way. And everybody needs a reason why.
Everyone needs a reason why. You're exactly right. Yep. And whether it's a belief or it's a value or it's a person or it's yourself or it's a need or whatever words we use to frame it, we need to start with that why, because it grounds us and it's what we come back to continually and repeatedly to be able to keep going forward. This is why it's what's causing you to pause. Well, the reason I start with the values and talk about how that leads into motivation is because when we hit the pause point with self-advocacy, we need to be able to have something to take ourselves back to ground us and root us in that reason why, so that we can find our way forward through the pause moment. I like to call it pause instead of calling it fear stopping you or shutting you down, because it's normally not really a stopping point unless the fear is so strong that you actually can't overcome that on your own. Then go get some help. Reasons why people come to therapy a lot, right? Reasons why kids in the classroom run up to teachers and educators and ask for help with the conflict happening out there, right? Because something happened, it kind of caused them to pause. And again, kids are such great self-advocates in that way. Hey, this kid said this and did that, right? Come help me with this. And as grown-ups, we need to do that too. We need to be able to turn to our peers, to our friends, to our colleagues, to our support system to build and create that network for ourselves. So we can absolutely hit the pause, but not be shut down by it. And we can communicate our values and our beliefs to people so they can help remind us of those things and bring us back to them again as well, so we can move forward again. Because when we hit the fear point, and there are so many of them, I could go on. I picked some big ones, some of the big main ones. There are so many though. And there are solutions and answers to all of them. And it's often going to be rooted in going back to our beliefs, our values, what has brought us through things in the past, what we're holding on to, what keeps us moving forward and focused on where we want to end up, the way we want to help see change in the world and how we want to show up. So there's the fear of the unknown. What could go wrong, right? I always say the overthinkers in the room always get this one. All the anxious people, but, and I hear the but, and I'm like, oh no, here it comes, right? Tidal wave of fear, woo! And there we go, down the what could go wrong spiral. I think it's a very spirally slide. And so it goes down. And on our next slide, we're going to talk about how to handle each of these as well and give you some solutions to them. There's the fear of criticism. What will they say? Will they talk about me? Will they judge me? My kid always goes, but what if I wear that and then people think I'm weird? And I say, isn't it fun to be weird?
That's what I say.
Yeah.
I say I'm weird.
I love it because it really does help them. It truly does. And now my kid's like, I'm going to be so weird in middle school. It's going to be awesome. And they're prepping for middle school now. And we were walking through the mall and they're like, this is really what I want for my birthday because it's weird. And I'm going to wear it to school. I might wear it on the first day. And I'm like, well, it's been kind of hot in August and I don't know. Right. And so there's my pause. I have all my reasons of I don't know, you should pause with that. Right. And my kid's a little self-advocate and they're like, I can handle that, Mom. I have a plan. Okay. Have fun. That'll be interesting. It might be a pause for me, but they already have the creativity to overcome it because they have a value now of showing up and wearing weird stuff and being fun with it. And they just really enjoy being creative with their outfits. So they make me think of you, Haley, with your outfits. They love it. They love accessorizing now. So the fear of mistakes. I think this is one for all the perfectionists. I toss the word perfect in. Wanting to get it perfect, wanting to get it right. Also, like really not wanting to fail people, let people down, being concerned about like that impact. We know when we make mistakes, how it might impact people. And this one catches a lot of us. Yeah, there's solutions for it. Fear of harm, what others could do to us, what might happen, how they might hurt us, how they might try to take down our career. If we really do that creative thing in the classroom we want to do with the kids, that's really awesome. But how might, will I still be a teacher next year if I do it? And yet then doing it and then getting to see and experience that might be the most impactful thing you did the entire year in your classroom. One of my kids, 5th grade teachers, was also my kid's 3rd grade teacher, and got to have my kid a 2nd time. And at the end of the school year, we were talking, and she was like, so this year I was doing this in the classroom, and she was telling me all about it. And she was like, I was wondering what like y'all at home would think about it. And I was like, I'll tell you exactly what this home thought about it. This home was like, that is so cool. Can I come to school and experience it too? Because she started using music and lyrics and songs to help them understand music and lyrics and songs better, to help them engage with literacy better, to help them be able to break down the meanings of things, which is going to lead into their poetry skills. And the former English teacher loves that. And these kids were beginning to like have that understanding that's going to develop to really appreciation of poetry and music so much better. They're going to think a little bit more critically as well. She developed the critical thinking skills of every kid in that classroom tremendously. And I'm so proud of her. And I'm so grateful as a parent. And I got to hear it from other parents too, and nudge them. Go back and tell the teachers, because sometimes I tell everybody else, but not tell the teacher, right? And so sometimes we're really scared to do the thing. We're scared to talk about stuff that's in popular news or media, but sometimes it's exactly that present stuff that engages people the most. And so I want to ask you, what's causing you to pause? When you think about the area in your life that you need to be doing self-advocacy, or the 15 zillion areas in your life where you need to be doing some more self-advocacy, we've all got a few. I think my list is pretty long right now. What's causing you to pause? What are you not moving forward on? Is there a block to some creativity that you want to do something kind of cool or different or unique? Is it the fear of being seen? Is it the fear of being weird? What is it? What's your pause? And I just want to invite you to write that down. Before I move on from that though, I want to just remind you all the story of Malala. And she had a moment of pause that was very impactful to her story, but also to the stories of women and children everywhere. And there was a moment she paused when they boarded her school bus on her way to school and put a gun in her face. They knew she was an outspoken advocate already at like 13 or something. She was really young. And it was her moment of pause. And there was the fear of real harm. And she realized, most likely, what point is self-protection really in this moment? What does self-protection truly look like? Because self-protection can go a couple of ways. You can try to be silent to self-protect, or you can speak up to self-protect. And she spoke. And they still shot her. And she realized they probably would have shot her anyway. Most likely what's going to happen either way. And self-advocacy normally doesn't that big and scary, thankfully, for all of us. But in that moment of pause, she went to her values. And it was her motivation. And that's what she spoke to. And it was a powerful moment. Now she gets to use the story to help change lives everywhere. And gets invited to speak places that people need to be speaking on these issues. And so, when we have our moment of pause, what do you need? For Malala, it was the return to courage. What she needed, there really wasn't much more she could do. She really made her decision in many ways before she ever boarded that bus, what she was choosing. She had her mind made up, and she was in action practicing her values and her beliefs every day. Education's important. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going, showing up. They say I can't, and I'm going to do it. And every time she got in that bus, she had to have courage for the unknown. She had to move out of overthinking to get on the bus and show up. Even when other families started keeping their kids at home and stopped sending their kids, and other friends quit because going forward was too scary. She found the courage. She did what she could for self-protection, and she kept going. So that's why it's important to have the values and the beliefs that we can come back to and determine what's important to us. It doesn't make the other people right or wrong. They have their own values and their own beliefs. They're allowed to make their decisions based off that too for their lives. But we have to focus on our values and our beliefs and our priorities and our right to them so that we remain focused on how we're going to move forward through our pause. So if you have a fear of the unknown, then you may need to consider the thought of, instead of what could go wrong, what could go right? What can go well? How can you turn this around and potentially show up so that something really great could happen, versus if you don't show up, nothing will maybe change or happen at all. So you may need to make a plan for the unknown. You may need to write out thoughts of what could go right and intentionally thought shift. Technique from cognitive behavioral therapy. Can't tell she's a therapist. Nope. Courage for helpful feedback. Well, if you're afraid of the criticism, then what if you turn it into kind of a twofold fun thing here? Having courage for helpful feedback and picking maybe people to give you helpful feedback, rather than leaving yourself open for the criticism and just expecting negative feedback. What if you ask and accept help with positive feedback, or get feedback before the thing from people you can trust will give you kind with their feedback? And maybe you make a plan to reject any negativity and any criticism that's not helpful and turn away. Maybe you need to create a boundary statement. So when someone says, I thought that was really great, except for that part where you told that one story and I hated it. I'm going to step over here and talk to so-and-so now. Thank you. We can talk about that another time, not right now. Thank you. And that story really meant something to me. You can find lots of ways to share that. And I'm sorry that story didn't land for you. It may have landed for somebody else. I hope you take good care of yourself and move on. Boundary statements can be really helpful when you're dealing with criticism from unkind people. Courage for learning. Well, if we're afraid to make a mistake, how can we lean into bravery and courage? Remember that value of lifelong learning? Well, we may make a mistake. It may be a mistake to some people, and it may not be a mistake to us. It may not be a mistake for the kids or the people that we care about in our life, though. But it might be for somebody else. That's okay. So what can we learn from this that we want to improve for the future? Because maybe we want to make the mistake again. But maybe next time we want to make the mistake in a safer environment, a more supportive environment with a better principal. I don't know. Because there's environments where it's okay, and there's environments where it's not really safe or okay. And so we can think about that and figure out how to move forward. So yes, we can be afraid of the harm that can come to us, but we can also have courage for protection. But protection sometimes doesn't always look like safeguarding ourselves. Protection sometimes looks like safeguarding the future. Sometimes it looks like safeguarding other people's minds and values. Safeguarding education for everyone. And sometimes that's what it looks like. So then we just probably need to come up with a plan for safety. How are we going to stand up and do this? How can we protect ourselves in realistic, safe ways? How can we not? I think about this whenever I go biking or jogging alone. I take the world's yappiest puppy with me, who is very defensive about my protection. And I want to ask you, what do you need? What do you need to have courage for? How do you recognize what the fear is and you change it into something that you're going to have the courage for based on your value, based on your belief, which is why I had you start with a value and a belief first. I see brains thinking. Makes me excited.
I was thinking, Mel, a couple slides ago when you gave us some examples of fears or pauses on your bullets, most of them were other people centered. Like, I'm afraid of what they're going to do or what they're going to think or what they're going to say. There was only one bullet that was something self-related, which was the perfectionist one. I'm afraid of not getting it right the first time. And so I think that that's really what I struggle with the most. I mean, obviously I care what other people think and I'm trying to grow out of that, but I think the thing I struggle with the most is my own, focusing on what I can control.
Yes.
And, you know, turning it back into like, it doesn't have to be perfect every time or the first time. Like, I'm learning from the mistakes that I'm making and I'm making it better the next time.
Yep.
So I just thought that was something that really struck me, was that a lot of those bullet points for examples of fears were other, like worrying about the other person. Whereas, you know, if I'm mostly focused on what I can control, which is me,
Yes.
that, you know, at least I know I can do that for me.
Yes. So the courage for self-action, the courage to, I don't know, sometimes, you know, the words, right? Like self-possession, self-confidence, the courage to choose what you can do and do it anyway. And stepping out of that fear into that way. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. I love it. So what, can you think of a specific thing that you need to do in order to move forward? You specifically, if you want to answer, you generally, I don't know if anybody else wants to answer. Anyone wants to share that like courage for?
I think for me, I'm sorry.
Going back to what Haley said when you were talking, what you're talking about is what we do as teachers for students. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're learning, you're growing. And I think sometimes we need to have the courage to, it's like the golden rule, but reverse. Treat me
Yes.
as well as I treat other
Yes.
people. Like, we're our own worst critics. We're our own worst enemies. Sometimes we would never do that to a friend or to a student.
Ever.
The courage to be our own teacher, the courage to be our own, you know, for lack of better words, but that's exactly what we do for our kids. And can we learn to do that for ourselves too?
Yes.
I think mine's kind of opposite in that I overwhelm myself because I think I'm the only one who can do it right. Like, and that everyone else is gonna.
Yes.
And so I'm too confident in myself.
That's why this is the perfect team here.
That's why Kaylee's here.
Here to get some help, guys.
That's awesome.
Yep. Yep. You know, like, I think sometimes it's like, recognizing that, like, while we can, sometimes we are capable of doing it all on our own. This is not a personal thing I have to deal with or anything. No, of course not. No, this one is very personal for me, actually. And I've had to have the courage to let other people help. The courage to
At the beginning, you know, I've had a lot of people in this room have helped with this, like getting EdCafe up and running. And like I've had a lot of people initially reach out and say, how can I help? But then I've also had to be like, gosh, if one person could just do this one thing, that would help so much. And I've like asked about for that specifically, like my niece Sarah over here. I'm like, hey, after the first week, I could really use some help with this tech stuff. You think you could help me with your expertise? And like,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised just asking, what's the worst that could happen is somebody could say no.
It's literally the worst is they'll hold their boundary and say no. And we want that for them because that's their self-advocacy. If we don't ask, we don't give them the opportunity to self-advocate and practice their no. Or, is it? Yeah, you like that? Yeah. This is one of, we need to give them the opportunity, right? And sometimes you probably want to be included and asked even if you can't.
Yes, I agree.
And we need to ask this of our communities, even if they can't, even if they're not able now, because it's how we build relationship, because they might still keep thinking about it. Like, I remember one teacher asking for help with something from our classroom. And a couple of years ago, I think it was third grade, maybe. Again, a lot happened in third grade, y'all. And they weren't sure that I would be able to show up in that way and help. And they were like, but nope, they just went ahead and broadcasted out everyone and then mentioned it to me. And I was like, yeah, I got that. Really? Yeah, I totally got that. Wow. And they got the help they really needed. And I said, I don't want everyone knowing I'm doing this thing to help out though. So like, can we be anonymous, right? Self-advocacy. It gave me the opportunity because I recognize my fear process. Oh my gosh, but if I do this and I do help in this way, how might it turn into this other thing and because of that thing? And I just don't want to deal with any of that mess. And I don't want 15 emails about that. And so like anonymously, that's how I'm going to move forward with this and unpause myself as I'm going to ask if they can do it anonymously. And they're like, yeah, of course, totally, absolutely. And so I can anonymously help and support and it not become a whole thing. And that saved me drama and grief and stuff like that. And so in this way, give the people the opportunity to self-advocate because they're totally right. It was going to create some drama over there. I probably didn't want to do that. But I come up with solutions and be creative to move forward again. Yep. And then the cool thing too is we give people the opportunity to give back and people will get rewarded from that. And we want them involved in schools, right? So keep asking. Keep asking so the right people can show up at the right time. Oh, so much with that, right? You can go on with that forever. Moving forward. I wrote in my notes, and I want to say this before I move this slide, that Malala knew the likely harm she would face, and she chose to honor herself and her beliefs and values. And I just really want to say that we need to be able to figure out how to move forward in a way that honors ourselves and our values and are holding them. So I want to ask you all to maybe pause and just practice for a moment. I was hoping we had more time and all, but our little fire drill and reset took a little bit more and helped me lose my train of thought. So it took longer to come back and right. So, okay. So I was going to have us pause here and I was going to offer that we could either do like a little role play kind of thing and talk about ideas, or we could just have a discussion about it or whatever. And I could offer a scenario and we could talk about a couple of things because there's so many different types of things we can do with that. Right. Instead, I just want to ask you to pause for a moment and just think through, is there an area where you need to practice this? Where does self-advocacy need to come up for you personally? Is there something going on with your health? Is there something in a relationship? Is there something you really need to manage or handle? that if you did, it would shift things for you, address fears or stresses. Could be personal, could be professional with that one too. Relationships, professional relationships as well. Is personal. Is there a place where you can practice more? As you think about it, and going back to what we talked about earlier, setting those values and those beliefs up, and looking at your definition of self-advocacy. What might be causing you to pause? Why haven't you done that self-advocacy work yet in that area? Is there a fear? How can your values, your beliefs, your definition of self-advocacy as well empower you to move forward and unpause? Do you need a plan? Do you need a skill? Do you need to write something out in advance of going into scenario? Do you need to practice it with a friend? What is it that you need? How can you ask and self-advocate to get that need met so you can help unpause in that area and you can move forward? You can take some action and self-advocate. And do you remember what I asked you to think of that person who would benefit if you did more self-advocacy? If you did the self-advocacy in that area that we just gave you a moment to pause and think of, would that person benefit that you thought of earlier? There are so many skills that can help us with practice. What skills will you need and where can you improve those skills? She's got so many powerful statements about self-advocacy that it was kind of hard to pick only a couple to include today. But Malala writes that we were scared, but our fear was not as strong as our courage. And then after I found the quote, I went back to the slide and edited it. Can we have courage for this? Can we lean into our values and our beliefs that motivate our courage, that help give us the ability to stand and ground ourselves so we can move forward? And how? How do we help that courage become stronger and grow? Because there's a lot of stuff that goes on that wants to keep bringing us back to the fears, because a lot of people do benefit from your fear. Fear is an easy way to control people. It's really simple. Y'all know if you've ever worked with kids, we can try to use fear, but it's not a good motivator. It causes pause and shutdowns. And so I want to invite that we practice the skills ourselves. And then we can carry that back to the people around us, into the classrooms, into the kids, into our communities, into our families. And we can help them unpause and lean and build their courage. We can motivate our teacher friends and we can help build them up so they can have more courage, and our principals and all the aspects of all the advocacy that needs to happen in the entire system if we're willing to do the work right here in ourselves. Not as strong as our courage. I really love it. What do you want to remember from today? Just a moment to pause and reflect on what we've said. Is there a word, an action, a thought, a skill? What is it that you need, that you want? This is your moment to pause with it and create that memory. So you can attach that to this moment in time, the seat you're sitting in right now in this room, to whatever memory you can create of this moment. So you can now hold this reflection and carry it forward. Do y'all have any questions? Any thoughts you want to share? Anyone on Zoom have anything you all want to pipe in with? Yeah. Yeah. If there are any skills that you recognize as well that you need to develop, I had a whole thing I forgot to add about the skills and everything like that, but we were running out of time. So I kind of skipped through it a little bit more. There are so many great ways to develop skills to help you move forward and people you can brainstorm with. I'm always here too. I do consulting and everyone's like, oh, I don't need a counselor. That's cool. I do more than counseling. I love consulting with teachers and helping them overcome fear blocks. And I, for a long time, have almost always had a teacher or two hanging out at my practice somewhere, whether they're doing coaching or consulting, or we're working with fear stuff, or we're doing counseling. Teachers handle and manage a lot. You all need support too. Your communities need support. Your friends need support. So like there's lots of skill building we can do. So I'm always open for those conversations. Yeah. Hope that was helpful to you all today. Was it good?
Sarah, do you want to stop the recording? If you're here in the room now, these little QR